Okay. I'd like to make a motion to
All in
discipline
favor?
an officer based on the recommendations of the labor attorney.
Can you say that again?
Discipline a police officer based on the recommendations of the labor attorney.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'd like to make a motion to open a public hearing for the designation of the critical environmental areas within the town of New Paltz and invite Ingrid up for a presentation. I'll set the,
Do we need to move anything out there?
I think we're gonna have to move some stuff. Katie, you're gonna have to move.
We need another chair. Some of them are.
Tied together.
You want to sit?
I can stand or
It's just that they're tied together. Some of them
I loaded yours, right, Mr. Did you make changes since you mailed it to me?
no, this one.
Oh, I have one for you.
Okay.
Tech support.
We had this set up before, we had to take it down for the,
You need to do this before public comment?
yeah.
Usually takes about 5 minutes, actually.
That's cool. I need your town email.
E-Bear.
It was working before.
Do you want to see it?
Yeah, I can, that's cool.
Or
Thank you.
send it to you?
I'm good. I'm good. I might even remember, believe it or not. But thank you. Thank you.
You guys, whatever you guys whispered, I picked up on those.
Yep. It was nothing.
No, I know, just saying.
I know.
Okay.
Been there, done that. Thank you.
It's as good as it gets.
Yay!
Congratulations.
All right, and where should I stand?
Anywhere you want.
All right.
I would face
Face
the
Face.
audience.
Yeah.
Hello. Good evening, everyone, and good evening to the Town Board and Village Board. My name is Ingrid Heckel, and I'm the chair of the Town of New Paltz Environmental Conservation Board. I'm a volunteer, and I'm happy to be here tonight to present our proposal for establishing 6 critical environmental areas in the Town of New Paltz before the public hearing begins. The ENCB undertook this project to bring attention to significant natural areas in our town. New Paltz has done some very excellent planning to identify critical open spaces in the community, yet we need a mechanism to ensure that developers are also considering the special qualities of these areas at the earliest stages of their planning. This proposal is intended to foster a more proactive approach to land use planning and environmental review, one that makes sure that we don't miss the forest for the trees. And I want to note that establishing critical environmental areas is a recommendation that goes back to our comprehensive plan from 25 years ago, which proposed 9 different critical environmental areas. So, what is a critical environmental area? It is an area with exceptional or unique environmental or cultural characteristics. The State Environmental Quality Review Act, or SEQRA, enables local governments to designate CEAs, and it's a legal distinction, but it doesn't result in a new code or law. However, the areas are added to a statewide map of CEAs at the State Department of Environmental Conservation. CEA designation does not have any direct impact on the vast majority of landowners because most activities of landowners are not subject to environmental review. So things like building a house or a garage or installing a swimming pool, another minor accessory structure, none of those actions is subject to seeker. Subdivisions or commercial projects larger than 4,000 square feet, projects that typically require planning board review, those go through seeker and are required to consider potential impacts to critical environmental areas, among other things.
So it got cut off.
All right,
for a
I'm just
second,
going to
sorry.
keep going,
Yeah.
and perhaps we'll get projects subject to seeker, the way that this affects planning board reviews is that projects subject to seeker are required to fill out an environmental assessment form at the beginning of that process. That's a form from the DEC that has a checkbox asking, is this project in or adjacent to a critical environmental area? And if so, the planning board must determine whether there will be any significant impacts to the CEA, and if so, can they be avoided or substantially mitigated? There are several benefits to CEA designation. It serves to alert developers, landowners, and others about the significance of resources in an area. It provides information early on in the environmental review process about critical resources, which can help to streamline that review by dealing with those issues up front early on. It's typically much harder to address those concerns after an applicant has invested a lot of money in their project design. And the designation ensures that special areas are given the due consideration they deserve during seeker, which is important for features that might otherwise be overlooked because there isn't a checkbox for them on the AF form. So it's important to know a couple things. CEAs do not protect land. They don't prevent development or restrict land use in the way that zoning regulations might. So rather, CEAs raise awareness about the importance of an area. They require a hard look during seeker and help keep track of the big picture. So we did a lot of research in putting together this proposal, consulting plans and scientific data from the town, county, regional, statewide level, and even the national scale to identify important resources in New Paltz and justify the unique or exceptional values of the proposed areas. We presented a first draft of this proposal to the town board last April, and at the same time held a public information session and did some other outreach about it. We got some comments, we revised our proposal and brought it back to the town board, submitted it last fall, and their last meeting voted to open this public hearing tonight. This is the map of proposed areas for designation. And there's a more detailed version of the map available on the town website on the ENCUE page that has parcel boundaries. If the areas are designated or approved by the town, they would be added to that statewide map, which you can access through an interactive online tool on the DEC website. You can zoom in and look at the boundaries in more detail. So I'm going to say just a few words about each of the 6 areas, but I want to note that our emphasis in this proposal has been on large, intact natural areas that support biodiversity, that provide clean water and flood mitigation, that contribute to the scenic beauty and landscape of our community. These are things that make New Paltz an attractive place for people to live. They help generate economic activity in our town and are a major driver of tourism. So conserving these large areas, intact landscapes such as these is furthermore fundamental in the context of climate change. Because we need to ensure that species are able to move and adapt in our rapidly changing climate. And preserving connected, intact natural areas is the #1 thing we can do in terms of our land use in addressing that. So to begin, can't see these pictures well? The Shangum Ridge is a defining natural feature of New Paltz. I think a few in this room would argue with that. And it's one of the highest priority areas for biodiversity conservation in New York State and the northeastern United States, in fact. It contains numerous examples of rare species and natural communities, and is one of the largest forests in our Hudson Valley region. It also includes an Audubon important bird area and is considered a climate resilient landscape by the Nature Conservancy. And this, you can kind of see which area I'm talking about on the map on the right. The Wallkill and Kleinkill corridor maps a forest corridor that's part of a statewide forest linkage zone that connects the Shangum Ridge with the Plutarch Woods and larger Chopinique forest block that's on the other side of town and extends into Esopus and Lloyd. This corridor shows up in nationwide models of forest linkages and habitat connectivity. It shows up as an area with outsized importance for northeastern habitat connectivity. And I'm beginning to think we should call this the New Paltz Climate Corridor. The riparian and floodplain forest habitat itself are of outstanding importance to stream health and flood mitigation and support rare species like the wood turtle. Clearwater Woods is a continuation of that climate corridor or forest linkage zone, a relatively large forest block in its own right and supports significant core habitat for wildlife, including the box turtle. The Plutarch Woods and Wetlands is a mapped DEC significant biodiversity area, part of a much larger forest block, as I just mentioned, of statewide significance. And it's unusually intact and large for this area of the Mid-Hudson region. This area supports abundant wetlands and vernal pool habitat with diverse wildlife, including many rare species such as the marbled salamander. And on the town's eastern end, the Swartikill Wetlands complex extends for almost 2,000 acres, including part of Lloyd and Esopus. It's part of that same significant biodiversity area and supports abundant wildlife, including rare species like the endangered northern cricket frog and a healthy population of river otters. It's ranked as one of the most resilient sites in New Paltz, according to Nature Conservancy data. And lastly, the Stony Kill Woods, which is a large block of forest a little south of 299 between Albany Post Road and Libertyville Road, is a large forest that is an important stepping stone for wildlife movement between the Wallkill River and the ridge. It also has important watershed protection values for the Wallkill and is notable for its scenic value given the high visibility of that area from the ridge and significant frontage along the scenic byway and other local scenic roads. So we've heard some concerns about the proposal and wish to share a few responses. It's noted that other CEAs are generally smaller than the ones that we've proposed. And we want to respond that the CEAs are large because the features that we're concerned about are large, and that's why they are critical and important. The town of Wawarsing, we note, also recently established 2 CEAs, those together measuring about 11,000 acres of land, which is more than the area we are proposing. There's concern that CEA designation will increase project costs for developers. We posit that additional studies may be warranted for some projects in these areas, and this will help the planning board make that determination. It is a tool for the planning board. Ultimately, the planning board has discretion and can make a reasonable judgment based on existing information and the scope of proposed projects. In addition, there's concern about potential for project delays. We posit that because CEA designation helps to alert developers and the planning board about these issues at the beginning of the environmental review process, it will help streamline those reviews and also result in better projects that reduce or avoid potential impacts. So I think I've made these points. I think we've presented a very strong argument for the significance and importance of these areas in the town. Simply put, they're irreplaceable. They are part of what makes New Paltz special, and the town has to ensure that these values are considered during environmental review, and CEAs are a tool to do that. So the next steps for the town board in terms of designating these areas will be to hold a public hearing, do seeker on the action and vote, Once or if approved, the proposal is sent to the DEC commissioner and it would go into effect in 30 days. So thank you very much for your time and give it back to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Ingrid. Thank you.
Thank you, Ingrid.
So I'd like to open the this is the public hearing for this. I'd like to open the public comment pod. If people have any comments, please come up and address the boards, talk into the microphone, and please. And John Gatto is first on the list. Is everyone on the list who the last name is Fawn? Is that anyone else sign up? So please, John.
Good evening, I'm John Gatto. I am the chairman of the Town of New Paltz Clean Water Open Space Protection Commission, CWASP. I'd like to read a letter on behalf of CWASP concerning CEAs. This letter is written to express the support of CWASP for the proposed designation of critical environmental areas, CEAs, within the town as described in the current proposal from the Town Environmental Conservation Board, ENCB. CWASP has heard a detailed presentation of this plan at one of our monthly meetings. We had a very robust discussion of its hypothetical merits and drawbacks. Following this discussion, we were convinced that the proposal represents a valuable contribution to the process of evaluating new development in the town of New Paltz. It does not in any way put any proposed areas off limits to development. Instead, it adds a very useful mechanism for proactive dialogue between the planning board and property developers in the early stages of their discussions. By alerting developers to features of the area that the town considers important, the overall process for approval of projects within a CEA would be streamlined, as projects would more likely be designed up front in ways that would facilitate their approval. This process greatly favors the kind of smart development that is envisioned in the town comprehensive plan, resulting in both the benefits of development and the maintenance of the environmental characteristics that contribute so highly to the quality of life in our town. It is worth noting that the comprehensive plan itself makes a strong and specific recommendation for the recognition of CEAs. So I just add that this is the unanimous position of all the members of the CWASP Commission. Speaking briefly for myself now, I would say I've discussed this with a lot of people. I've heard some reservations, as Ingrid alluded to, primarily the assertion that it will almost necessarily cause additional delays and expense for somebody trying to undertake a development project. The reality is each project that comes before the planning board has its own set of issues, its own pros, cons, its own problems. And as Yogi Berra said, it's hard to make predictions, especially about the future. The point being that you could equally make the argument that the existence of a designated CEA will in fact save everybody a lot of time and effort and expense by having these important discussions much earlier in this process. I'll leave this letter with the clerk. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Thank you.
Ray Lunati?
Hello, my name is Raymond Lunati. I'm Town of New Paltz resident, Springtown Road, landowner and stakeholder. I'm here tonight to discuss with the town board concern for the Environmental Conservation Board proposing a critical environmental area zoning map, which the final draft is dated October 16th, 2019. First I heard of this was at the end of January 2020. I'm opposed to my property being on the map. 20 years residing in New Paltz while constantly defending my property rights has become very stressful. I had a whole bunch of questions of which Ingrid covered, so I'll just skip through, but were affected landowners notified, and how was notification distributed? What credentials besides volunteering your time and qualifications do the members of the Environmental Conservation Board have to come up with such a map? Were field studies conducted and by whom? Recently, I subdivided lot line revision, my property, which came in front of all these boards. So starting in April 2019, my neighbor and I submitted a lot line revision to the planning board. This involved reducing the lots from 4 to 3. I think that's pretty environmentally sound. The ENCV thought we were reducing from 3 to 2, but you know. The planning board process required and was subject to the following: the SECRA, State Environmental Quality Review, the EAF Environmental Assessment Form Impact Statement, which is on number 4. I have it right here in the application. If anybody would like to see it, number 4 right there, I highlighted it. It's, will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area, which was answered negative declaration on my application, thus removing my land and my neighbor Chris Todd's land from this newly produced CEA map. Then an EAF mapper, which you have to go to online to the DEC, and it requires an applicant to review endangered species, archaeological sites, and historical preservation on the properties involved in the application. Mine, again, was a negative declaration. We also have the floodplain law and the flood and inspector where necessary. We have a wetland inspector. We have clearing and grading laws in place. We have agricultural data statement. By approving the critical environmental zoning map, an overlapping process is the result. During my application, the lot line revision went under the purview of the Environmental Conservation Board. No notification was sent to me concerning the review of the application. They came to assumptions that created a large lot would lead to future development. Hey, I had a larger lot before I revised the lot line with my neighbor, and I made my lot smaller. I could have made my lot to 3 building lots, but I actually reduced it to 1. Before the lot line revision, I possessed an additional 6 acres, and potential for any subdivision possibilities were far greater. Far more impact on the Kleinkill corridor is currently in place by the R2R trail, which encompasses far greater area and land differences. This is the Environmental Conservation Board's review of my subdivision, which nothing was really subdivided. It was just a line drawn on paper. There was no changes in the woods. And it says the ENCB believes the proposed reduction of lots from 3 to 2, it was actually 4 to 3, is desirable. And the ENCB has no further comments regarding the lot line revision. They have other notes in there, but there it is. The ECB has had different findings than DEC regarding endangered and rare species in this corridor through the EAF Environmental Assessment Form Mapper. I have a high regard for the environment and nature. Trust me. I would like the lead agency, in this case I guess it's the town board, to not adopt the final draft of the ECB critical environmental zone map based on the reasons above, or at least remove my link. I'm providing my section block numbers. I'm actually on the horn of the ridge, high up. If there's ever a flood out there, I'll survive. You'll all be over at my house looking for a dry land. But I would like these lots taken out. Now my neighbor, Chris Todd, he can't be here to defend himself because he just recently died in January. So I took it upon myself to involve him since I was the one who was in charge of this lot line revision. So if these lots could be taken out of this, nothing's gonna change in my neck of the woods.
Ray, can we see those? Ray.
Ray, you gonna leave stuff for
I am
us?
gonna,
Okay.
organize.
Okay.
Mary Beth Benatti?
Thank you. My name's Mary Beth Bonatti. I am a property owner in New Falls for 20 years. I live on Springtown Road. My property is in the designated area for this CEA, and I oppose this designation. I think the steps that we have with the DEC and seeker right now are sufficient for people that are making any changes to their land. This includes my whole property. I was never advised, consulted. I know my property. Someone could have asked me what was on my property or what I plan on doing with my property other than hiking around on it with my dog or my cat. So I oppose this. I don't think it's necessary. We have the DEC. We have so many steps in place right now with the town of New Paltz for people to follow, and it takes so much time to get anything done. So I don't think this is necessary. I see things going in, trails for the open space that are gravel and knocking down trees along the Wallkill River that aren't opposed by anyone. So I don't think this designation is necessary for the town.
Thanks, Marva.
Okel? Thayer?
Thank you.
Hello, I'm reading this for Janelle Piotr, who cannot be here. Dear members of the town board, I am writing as a town of New Paltz resident and the designated coordinator for New Paltz Climate Smart. I regret that I am not able to attend the public hearing tonight on CEAs to personally read this letter, but would like to register my strong support for the establishment of critical environmental areas. As your coordinator of for New Paltz Climate Smart, my role is to help this municipality to take action to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and adapt to changing climate. We need to protect large, connected, resilient landscapes such as the proposed CEA areas to enable species to migrate in a rapidly warming climate. The Nature Conservancy's Resilient Connected Landscapes Initiative, and there's a website here, has identified the Wallkill and Kleinkill corridor and Clearwater Woods as a resilient corridor connecting highly resilient habitat on the Shawanga Ridge and in the Swartkill wetlands and Plutarch Woods. ESRI, the world leader in geographic information systems technology, has a suite of public mapping tools and data to help communities protect the places and natural resources that help people, wildlife, and the economy thrive. A major part of this corridor also shows up as having disproportionate importance to connectivity of intact habitat cores in ESRI's nationwide green infrastructure analysis, which can be viewed here, and there's a website. This area is also mapped as a forest linkage zone in statewide connectivity analysis by the Nature Conservancy and the New York Natural Heritage Program. There is also very important floodplain forest habitat in the Wallkill corridor, a rare habitat that is highly important to flood resilience. Some of the benefits of a CEA designation are that they promote more proactive planning and design to conserve critical areas by focusing attention on reducing fragmentation of large intact habitats and forest corridors. However, they do not affect construction of a single family dwelling on an approved lot. They do not regulate development like zoning does, and they do not require the preparation of an environmental impact statement. Your thoughtful consideration of this proposal is very much appreciated. Respectfully submitted, Janelle Piotr.
Thank you.
Thank you. Rich Whitney?
I'll take it.
I'm Rich Whitney. I'm going to read a letter on behalf of Kitty Brown. I'm going to be here tonight. Critical environmental areas are an important tool in the land use planning toolbox, and the proposal by our Environmental Conservation Board does an excellent job of adding the missing step from our planning process. The habitats and corridors within the CEAs will help preserve the already fragile ecosystem balance. The CEAs are clearly mapped and well thought out. The benefits to our community, planning board members, and future project applicants are well defined. And checking the CEA box on applications will give developers a heads up so they can avoid delays in the planning process. The CEAs are a win-win for everybody, and I urge the town board to support the adoption of this proposal.
Thank you.
And speaking for myself as a nearly 40-year resident of New Paltz, with property that is adjacent to one of these critical environmental areas, I fully support and urge you guys to adopt it. It's just an additional alert to the uniqueness of the area. I don't think it adds any delay since it's in the beginning of the process. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Julia Solomon?
Good evening. My name is Julia Solomon. I am the Director of Land Protection for the Mohonk Preserve. Thank you for the opportunity to comment. As a landowner in the town of New Paltz, the Mohonk Preserve is pleased to share our scientific data in support of the designation of critical environmental areas in the town. It is the Preserve's mission to support efforts to protect the Shawangum region, and we are pleased to have over 1,200 member households and 32 business members in the town of New Paltz. We are encouraged by New Paltz's leadership among ridge towns in leveraging available scientific and technical information for use in resource-based planning. Mohonk Preserve has been studying the lands of the Shawangum Ridge, spanning 5 towns, for over 50 years. Our studies, combined with others, have resulted in an extensive inventory of natural communities, including rare and threatened species, and the analysis of ecological processes to determine conservation targets that warrant protection. I would like to speak specifically about 3 of the proposed critical environmental areas that are closely geographically and ecologically linked with the Mohonk Preserve. The first, of course, is the Shawangum Ridge Critical Environmental Area. We are fortunate that at this point the ecological importance of the Shawangum Ridge is widely understood. We know that the cliffs and talus fields of the ridge are vitally important for biodiversity conservation. Large, unfragmented blocks of chestnut oak forest provide crucial habitat and forest connectivity, and include some stands of old-growth forest with trees over 300 years old. Cliff faces provide habitat for many animal and plant species of conservation concern, including nesting sites for state-threatened peregrine falcons and highly concentrated populations of state-threatened mountain spleenwort fern. Talus boulder fields are also important aquifer recharge areas, which are necessary for the protection of groundwater quality. The clean, healthy forests and diverse plants and animals of the Shawangums do not exist in isolation. They are part of a larger interconnected landscape of forests, fields, streams, and wetlands. Inappropriate development at a location within any one of these interconnected systems could result in impacts to all of them. The impacts of development include dividing wildlife populations, changes in water flow, erosion of soil cover, and the displacement of native species by the introduction of non-native ones. Such impacts can be irreversible and would diminish the value of the ridge as an important natural area. It is this principle of landscape connectivity that leads me to comment on 2 additional proposed critical environmental areas that are closely connected with the Shawangum Ridge and Mohonk Preserve protected lands: the Wallkill River and Kleinecke Corridor, and the Stony Kill Woods. Although both of these areas lie outside the boundary of Mohonk Preserve, their habitat and hydrology are linked with ours. The headwaters of the Kleinecke stream are located on the ridge, and the stream flows through preserve property before joining the Wallkill. The proposed critical environmental area encompasses land that provides important riparian buffer and a valuable wildlife corridor in this watershed, connecting the ridge with the Wallkill Flats. The Stony Kill Woods border on the Mohonk Preserve foothills, and the Stony Kill stream originates in the vicinity of the protected wetlands on our property near the Testimonial Gateway. The intact forest in the proposed critical environmental area provides watershed protection and also habitat connectivity between the foothills and the ridge. In conclusion, I would like to reiterate that the Mohawk Preserve is grateful to the town of New Paltz for the opportunity to comment on the ecological importance of the ridge, and we commend you for your thoughtful approach to natural resource protection and land use planning.
Thanks,
Thank
Gina.
you. Seth McKee?
Good evening. I'm Seth McKee, 25-year resident of the town, Duzine Road. I'm also the former co-chair of the Open Space Commission of the town, and worked way back in 2006 to get the open space plan passed by the town board and the open space bond, which was approved by 2/3 of the voters of New Paltz. So people clearly care in this town about quality of life and their natural environment. But I'm here as a private citizen. Wanted to add my voice to the very good comments tonight that the proposal for critical environmental areas is a sound next step in safeguarding natural places that make New Paltz special. A lot of it flows from, as Ingrid mentioned, the comprehensive plan, but also from the open space plan. We identified certain areas as being vital for safeguarding. It'll help our town to safeguard water resources, wildlife habitat, and all the services that nature provides, such as flood control. But what does flood control mean? It means fewer people calling the fire department to say, please pump out my basement after the next extreme storm. Hopefully it means fewer people showing up at your house in the next flood, right? Because they'll be high and dry as well. Water purification, you know, we had to find an alternative water source when DEP closed the aqueduct temporarily. If this proposal can help us keep our waters clean, we'll all benefit from that. Clean air, keeping carbon in our forests, doing our part to address climate change, providing wildlife corridors for wildlife to migrate through, protecting the scenic views that people come here to New Paltz and spend their money to visit, to move here and work and raise families. Reading through it and knowing how these CEAs work, they exist all over New York State. This is not some radical New Paltz concept that's come up here. They're very workable, and it does create some additional process, but it's upfront process that gives both the developer and the planning board extra clarity on steps that can be taken to safeguard the natural environment. Often I've talked to planning board members when they're faced with a proposal that seems problematic, and they've said, what can we do? The zoning allows it. Well, this is another tool for the planning board's toolbox that they can use, so they don't have to throw up their hands and say, well, our hands are tied. I've heard that many times, and this will be an extra tool to help guide, not stop development, but help guide development in a way that is beneficial for the public good. So many thanks to the ENCB and to Ingrid for working on this, and to the town board for considering it. Thank you.
Thanks, Seth.
Apologize, but if I pronounce your name wrong, Karen Shalinsky?
Nachasaki.
Nachasaki? And Fawn Cantillo?
Do you want to be on the other list? Okay, put Karen on the other list.
Real quickly, I've been involved in wetland protection since, they first had New York State wetlands. I opposed building the sewer plant in Ohioville because they were building it in a New York State wetland. I live by the Schwartkill wetland. Your map, by the way, goes way beyond the bounds of that. It goes right up to the road, so it's encompassing lots of light industrial businesses that are there already. Back 30 years ago, the town was going to declare its own wetlands, above and beyond the state wetlands. And at the time, I don't know if this, I'm multi-plane, that includes the Mohawk Preserve protection we already have, and I bet you will find there's not much land that's in these zones that's not already being protected. There may be some, but I'll bet there's not a lot. And I'll bet if you get down to it, those few pieces probably may not be up as critical as some people think. I think they might need a second look. So in order to have an intelligent conversation about this, I think you need to look at all of it in the same map at the same time. Not looking at this map in isolation, looking at a wetland map in isolation, looking at a 100-year floodplain in isolation. Look at all of it. There's not very much land in New Paltz that doesn't already have some really strong environmental protections.
Is Ingrid still in the room? Ingrid, you have an overlay map, do you not? Is that on the town website now?
No, but we can put it on.
Does it include all the wetlands and all those things, or just the?
I can easily add.
Is it pretty easy?
It's not hard. Yeah, it's not hard.
That'd be good to have. Fully protected. You can get permits to do things in those areas.
And you can get permits to do things. We made a point, we had half a dozen speakers now have said, this can be used to stop when they stop them. It will be used to stop them. All I'm saying is that we need to look at all of it in concert.
Okay, does anyone else like to make, would anyone else like to make a comment on the CEAs? If so, please come up.
My name is Roland Barrett. I live at 191 Old Kingston Road. I've lived there 49 years now, and I've been in New Paltz probably 6 more years than that. I border on the Wallkill River corridor, as I can now see as a result of these maps. And I support the idea of the critical environmental areas being accepted by this town. There's a long history of such proposal as this being in the New Paltz News and other papers. I think back to the 70s when a natural resource inventory was done by the then beginnings of a conservation commission. Now it's conservation board, but back then it was conservation commission. And it seems like about every decade from the mid-1970s, there's been another surge of effort to identify these areas. And I think it's very important that the board accept them. They are valuable. They give at a quick glance the important areas environmentally for a board such as a planning board to look at. And particularly for anybody who happens to own land or wants to purchase land in New Paltz, a quick glance and they know where they stand. And I think that's the main value of it. As a personal experience, I for a number of years have thought about putting a garage on my lower property, and I could obviously still do that based upon things that were said. But just looking at this map would tell me that maybe that wouldn't be wise because it's part of the floodplain. Now, if you were on my property or around my property, you wouldn't be thinking floodplain in any way. I'm far enough away from the Wallkill River. But at the last hurricane, I think it was Hurricane Irene, the last big one we had, and that might have been followed by a tropical storm, water backed up considerably. And it turns out that I was able to go out on the lower portions of my driveway with my kayak onto Huguenot Street and put the kayak in. And this is the north end of Huguenot Street, right where it begins before you get to the restaurant, you know, and the golf course. I'm right on the corner. And on the lower edge of my property, I have like a driveway, a rough driveway. It's an old cow pasture driveway. And I put the kayak on. I was able to kayak all the way to the Wallkill River, around, up the river, back, over the golf course, over the rail trail, and back to my property, all without, dragging the bottom. That's how far the water came in. So there, in personal experience, I learned about, whoa, that floodplain actually could be considered to go right up to my property. This the critical environmental area map, if I were doing it, let's say, now or next year, and it was accepted, would give me at a glance what the borders of that floodplain is, and give me a chance to pause and think about whether or not I'd want to build a garage and then deal with the periodic floods that have occurred and may occur in the future. So I support this proposal. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks, Roland.
Is there anyone else? Okay, I'd like to make a motion to leave the public here. Oh, we also had 6 letters in support that we've entered into the record, and the board has reviewed them. And then I'd like to make a motion to leave the public hearing open for the CEA designations.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I'd like to call the joint meeting to order. Thank you for coming, thank you for waiting. You guys want to stand for the pledge again? We already did it, so please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance